ChatGPT, for example, should assist us to make education for everybody in the world, right, available to all of us. So I think that's the kind of convincing that should happen. And this is one by one, talking to every person, listening to every person, as Glen is teaching us. But I would say at the highest level, we should think about, at the level of international cooperation amongst states, 193 members of the United Nations, we should say, well, we have thought about national security for so long. Then there was an expansion of human security from national to human security. The moment is ripe now for humanity's security, so where we can connect with each other across the world. I realized during COVID that I was going to be safe in Boston as long as my parents in Brazil would be safe, my friends in Europe, across the world, my sister in Australia. So, everybody had to be vaccinated, right? So that prompted me to think about this new concept in my last book of humanity security, where you can really humanize international relations, and you can humanize all processes that lead to more individual and global cooperation as well.
So just to repeat the question for people who are viewing this streaming, the question is, if it only takes 3.5% to have that kind of transformative effect, I think this is for Denise, how can AI be leveraged to sort of get to that 3.5% faster? Is that accurate? Okay.
Oh my goodness. What did you say, Glen? Well, I'm assuming that the enlightened elite will have the access already. We hope that this is an enlightened elite that will transmit the ability to gain the technology to some scientists in the country, some of the distinguished private sector members, academics, journalists, and imagine if we had a John Avalon in each country, that would be already great. So imagine this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid most countries in the world have very little capacity, technological and the wherewithal, the financial wherewithal, even to comply with international law, with all the rules and regulations, So this 3.5% idea can be very revolutionary because it would create a diffusion effect, right, Glen? I would say.
Well, so just to comment on that, so the model is fairly simple at its core, and that is voices of humanity have a powerful effect, but it's how you transmit those. And then the other effect from Steve's program, The Million Peacemakers, is you can teach people how to hate, and you can teach people the opposite. It ain't complicated. Some of you may or may not be familiar with the public health model. It's not something that I was particularly familiar with, but it's a disease prevention model, and you can apply it here for the 3.5%. And so, heart disease, we don't wait until everybody's a walking heart attack and have ambulances on the street corner that can suddenly come to you. We promote lifestyle when you're in your 20s and good diet. The best way to prevent disease is not get it in the first place, not treat it afterwards. And so the fourth step in the public health model is once you've found something that has worked, widespread adoption, which is what happened with the COVID vaccine. As soon as you've got a vaccine that's worked, it's jabs in arms. And so you switch mode into, we now got something that's worked. How do we propagate that? And how fast can we propagate it? And I think AI opens up all sorts of avenues in terms of that connecting people in a low resource way. Rwanda's a country of 14 million people. We've been privileged to have a significant role there. Nigeria is a country of 200 million people. The resources that might be needed for us to apply our model that has worked in Rwanda to apply it to something that's nearly 20 times the size. So I think, to answer your question, I think AI opens up all sorts of avenues as to how that can be accelerated in a way that we just couldn't have thought about previously.
Yeah, and I think this is the most fascinating thing, because de-radicalization is difficult to scale, and maybe, just maybe, we can scale it more effectively with AI.
I would say there is a revolution happening right now in this area that you all will love. It's bringing peace bonds and investments into the peacemaking realm. So it is a growing movement. It started in Geneva by a few people who were seeing that the appetite for funding peacekeeping, humanitarian assistance is fading. Countries have so many competing priorities now with tackling climate catastrophe and all, and preventing the next pandemic and all. So the idea is to rewire the private sector and the investment and the banking system to produce what's called peace bonds, and to make sure that there is a constant flow of investment to post-conflict situations and to areas that are needed also in other areas of humanitarian assistance. Take, for example, we have Libya and Morocco now struck almost at the same week by huge natural disasters. So how would you have a flow of peace bonds to be invested there, to be beneficial for everyone? So I think that is happening now, and it's very exciting. The same thing a little bit is happening with tackling climate change, rewiring the financial system, the bankings, the insurance, to be, deeply aware that they have to retune everything towards being preventive about more catastrophic risks emanating from climate change.
So, Randall, thank you. And the main thing I'd say is businesses have more ability in this area than they ever thought that they have. And I'll explain a little bit more in that in practical terms. The other thing I'd say is when you have catastrophic conflict, such as genocide, everything is lost. It's like the argument with AIDS. If AIDS destroys an entire population, every investment you've made previously adds up to nothing because there's nobody there. And so it's in businesses' vested interest to have as little conflict as possible. But in terms of going back to the first question, businesses have employees. The total number of employees in the world, I don't know what the figure is, but it's more than 3.5% of the population of the world. The other thing I'd say is that the attributes of being a peacemaker in the Aegis model is about empathy, is about critical thinking, and it's about individual responsibility. Now, you tell me a business on the planet that does not want to have employees that have empathy, critical thinking, and individual responsibility, and is able to transform conflict within their home life and within a business life and turn it into something productive. That, to me, is a profit model. So I would argue that it's in the direct interest of businesses, both in terms of producing a more investment-friendly climate as a risk management. But the second thing is, I'd say it's actually good for business.
That's fascinating.